What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Rao YouTube channel. We are back with a USC Trojan breakdown here on our top 25 video series that we've been doing here. It's been a lot of fun, but now we're getting into the big boys. We talked about Clemson last time. Now we're getting USC. Can Lincoln Riley take, USC back to the college football playoff? They were one game away last year losing to Utah. Can Caleb Williams win another Heisman? We're going to be diving into their, offense, defense, and all those transfer guys that they got on that defensive side. We're going to be talking about that. How big of an impact can they make? And then the shopping that they did. Just kind of go around. They threw that NIL money around. So where did that look like? So hit that like and subscribe button while the intro is going. If you love college football, if you love USC, stick around. Come get a big preview of one of the best teams in the country. All right. Lincoln Riley came over from Oklahoma last year for USC in 2022, and he brought that offense. Third in the country last year for points per game. He brought a Heisman transfer quarterback, and they were loving that. And really, I think they overperformed what they thought they were going to be last year, and they had those two losses to Utah. I mean, that was really where it happened. They should have won the game at Utah, but no one really wins there. We've talked about that multiple times here on the channel, but that game was in hand, and then they lost a bad game where Caleb kind of was banged up. And that really cost them in terms of the Pac-12 championship game. They would have been in the playoff. They would have played number one Georgia in there. Didn't happen. And then they lost to Tulane 45-46. So they kind of ended on a bad note. They lost the Cotton Bowl against Tulane there. But overall, I think moving forward, they got Riley, and they have got all kinds of guys coming in on that transfer portal. So they're reloading. They want this year to be the year. I think USC knows that. I think with Caleb there, with the move to the Big Ten next year, this is kind of that year to go get it. The Pac-12 is loaded, though, and the Pac-12 has one last hurrah in it. It's gone after this year, but these teams are very good. So let's dive into what USC offers. Let's start with that offensive line. We got a new kind of offensive line, as you can tell, and that makeshift stuff, right, Christian?
Oh, yeah. This is certainly a different group than last year, but I think that's a good thing. I think there was certainly some issues on that offensive line, and they kept the two good players that they had in their center, Justin Dedich and Jonah Monheim. Monheim's really good on the right side. They brought in these three transfers, Michael Tarquin, Emmanuel Pregnon, and Jarrett Kingston, all very highly regarded in the transfer portal, all played very well at their respective schools last year. So I think the main part of this offensive line is we clearly know that the depth isn't quite there. So staying healthy, but really making sure that they gel, because I think that's a major component of offensive line play, getting this group together, making sure they're getting reps. I know sometimes scores can get run up a little bit and you like to get second team and third team in there. This feels like one of those offensive lines that should stay in the game, even in those blowouts, just to continue building chemistry and knowing where everyone is. But overall, this group is significantly better than what they rolled out there last year.
Yeah, that group last year was kind of just a ragtag group, and they did well enough, but you did see kind of what happened to Caleb as he kept taking hits, and over time, kind of got worn down there. And so, like, consistency-wise, yes, Jarrett Kingston's an interesting one for me because he came in as a tackle transfer, and you saw that. So now they're moving the guard, so, like, they definitely do have that patchwork there. I do know that they like Emmanuel. They do really like Michael Tarkin from Florida. Like, they really think he could be that guy, that left tackle for them, and they need it because if they can just protect Caleb, let's talk about the dudes that he's got around him. Like, this offense is incredible. And I think with Caleb Williams there, we know what that is. In terms of what he did last year, 42 touchdowns, he deserved to have, that Heisman Trophy. He broke all kinds of like a dozen school records last year. He set the bar very high for himself to 4,500 yards passing. Then you have, and they have Miller Moss too. I don't want to knock Miller Moss. He's a very capable backup. And then you have Malachi Nelson, the true freshman, coming in. Marshawn Lloyd is a great get for this offense from South Carolina. That was a huge transfer pickup after losing Travis Dye. Austin Jones there, Raleek Brown, Quentin Joyner as well. And Brown's kind of moving in from wide receiver as well. Marion Peterson is another guy that I really like. Wide receiver wise, people sleep on Brendan Rice, but sitting there at that X, he is a very solid wide receiver for college football. Then you have Dorian Singer, Mekhi Lemon, who I know we both like, Mario Williams, but then they got Zachariah Branch. They got Deuce Robinson, true freshman, coming in at tight end position. They're solid and they're stacked there. I think that one key position battle that you see that we have in our manifesto is Marshawn Lloyd versus Austin Jones. But overall, this offense shouldn't miss a beat like it did last year.
No, this pass catching group is a lot better than last year too.
Yeah.
Adding guys like Makai Lemon, Mario Williams, or not Mario Williams, Zachariah Branch, I think you're feeling a lot better about the depth there. There's still guys behind that group that could contribute as well. Taj Washington gets some hype here and there. I think Singer and Caleb finding some type of chemistry will be key to unlocking this entire offense. Singer is one of those guys that he's a contested catch dude. He can win downfield. That's the type of receiver that Caleb should thrive with. I'm intrigued to see how much the freshmen get on the field. I know that Lincoln Riley likes to play freshmen or likes to give them an opportunity, and I think these are two of the most ready for college football receivers that we've seen. Even over some of the Ohio State kids, I think that these two could be really impactful for this team. And then, like you said, Austin Jones was really good when he
Yeah.
stepped in after Travis Dye got hurt last year. I'm intrigued to see what kind of rotation is there. Yeah, they're loaded, man. And, I barely talked about Caleb Williams, who's like a generational quarterback prospect, like the best one since Andrew Luck. So they are in good shape.
They need that running back room to step up. I think consistently wise kind of help Caleb a little bit and maybe keep him off the field as much in terms of just like, doesn't have to throw as much and he can kind of like just get some rest. I think that running back room is big. And I like Quentin Joyner a lot. Like I think Joyner is going to step up and be a dude in that offense. All the reports say they really like him as well. It's going to be fun. That rotation is going to be a lot of fun there. Notable losses. I really like Travis Dye, and I know you did too. I thought he was key for this offense last year. Him getting hurt last year, absolutely, that's the reason why I lost to Utah. If Travis Dye was out there and healthy and ready to go, I really feel like they win that game. Dye was that important to them. He was that dude, 3-down guy. He could really do it all. Pass catching, great pass blocker. I love Travis Dye's pass blocking. They lost Jordan Addison. Obviously that's a big loss. When you're talking about the Blitnikoff Award winner from 2021, when you're looking at what he was able to do, yeah, that was a big loss. But I thought he had an up and down career for the Trojans. Andrew Voorhees, Gary Bryant Jr., who went to Oregon. Notable losses for sure. I think that the first two, especially Andrew Voorhees, was good, and he got hurt in the combine, right? So when you're thinking of like what he did, he was a very solid prospect. Overall, yeah, notable losses, but they did a good job of kind of filling in.
Yeah, and I think they filled the wide receiver room with receivers that are a little different than Jordan Addison even.
Yeah.
Zachariah Branch could be an Addison-like player, but he profiles best out of the slot and like with gadget stuff to me to start, whereas Makai Lemon is that guy that can win downfield. Addison, they used him in different ways. Like his usage from Pitt to USC was vastly different. So I'm intrigued to see what this wide receiver room shakes out to be with Addison's absence. And then Andrew Voorhees, I just want to mention that dude played in college for like 10 years. And that's why I think he was good at times. I think that he could also be a liability at times last year. So I think they're probably feeling like they're in better shape on the offensive line in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. When you look at the recruits, obviously they do a good job here. Offensively, you're going to see a ton. We couldn't even put the graphic up because they got so many guys. When we're looking at this, overall ranked 7th in the country, they have a 4 transfer rank. So that's really what we're going to dive into as well. They attacked California. They have 12 kids coming from California in this class. As far as the players go, Zachariah Branch, everybody's going to say Tyreek Hill, but this kid is special. Like position wise, state wise, in Nevada, number 1 recruit, 5'10", 172. I've dived into him. He's just difference maker. Punt return, kick return, maybe, but punt return for sure. Just a difference guy. And then, like, when you're talking about elevating this offense, Branch can do that. Like, he's a difference guy than they've had on this roster. Malachi Nelson's a guy that's going to probably redshirt this year from a quarterback position. He's got to put some weight on, but he's the future. Him and Dante Moore is going to be a lot of fun to watch battling over there. Deuce Robinson, 6'6" tight ends, 225. Makai Lemon, I think, is a guy that gets slept on. He was a dual cornerback and wide receiver, but he's going into wide receiver. He's explosive He's next guy up in that room. I think he's just as explosive. Joyner comes in. So you just go through the list. They are very, very solid all the way around. Elijah Page. So they did go attack the offensive line positions, which historically looking at kind of Riley's rankings and recruiting classes, offensive line isn't necessarily someplace that he really highlights. He kind of gets guys and plugs and plays and everything, but you could tell that he definitely went after the Mika Benuelos and Elijah Page, two guys that were in the top 16 at their positions. But overall, a hell of a class.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're a skill position player and you're a recruit, I think you want to go to USC because you've seen
Yeah,
what they've been able to do. Um, Man, I just can't stop watching Makai Lemon. I think
yeah,
that this kid is going to be on the field early. Both Branch and Lemon, but Lemon is one of those guys that I think can, if Singer fails to kind of take those steps that I think he does need to take, then I think Makai Lemon can kind of do some of those things as well. As just a refined route runner. I think he's just as special as Branch. I think they're in the same tier. I would have if I were giving stars out, I would have given Makai Lemon a 5th star. And then Amarion Peterson is one. Quentin Joyner, I love him. I like Peterson too. I think
yeah.
they're set up really nicely for the future here.
That's a great 1-2 punch. Both those dudes are great 1-2 punches that they're going to be able to use in that backfield, and they might not have to go get transfers now. So, like, I really feel like Riley's coming in saying, "Hey, we're going to go get dudes that can fill this roster going forward." Key transfers like we talked about coming in. You have Marshawn Lloyd, who, if healthy, he's one of the better running backs in college football. Like you saw at South Carolina when he was healthy. He's explosive. He showed a little bit last year when you saw him out there. I like him. And then we talked about these guys already: Jared Kingston, Michael Tarkin, Dorian Singer. Arizona's got to be sick to their stomach because they got two guys that they just basically they groomed, and then USC just comes and plucks them over. But to me, Singer is different. I think Singer is a nice, solid piece there. But if Marshawn Lloyd is Marshawn Lloyd, like we think Marshawn Lloyd can be, this offense takes next step.
Oh, for sure. And Lloyd, to me, very up and down. I'm excited to see what this offense is able to do for him because we talked about, Travis Dye and how impactful he was. I think when you toss a running back in there with the explosiveness, because I think that's Dye's knock, right? Is he wasn't
Yeah.
very explosive. If he's able to run with the same vision, kind of anticipate the blocks ahead of him, man, I think this could be a massive, massive year for him and boost his draft stock, but also put USC in legitimate title contention.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that's really what you're looking at with these guys here. Overall, like impact players. Caleb. Caleb is a guy when we're talking about him. I don't understand the Caleb over or Drake May over Caleb Williams in terms of the
No.
quarterback area. Caleb does things that are just special on that field. And when you watch him play there, now if we're gonna nitpick Caleb, I do think that sometimes his freestyle ability kind of gets out of the pocket. I think he does that a little bit too much. And I think that came back and bit him a little bit, but his arm talent is just it's so ridiculous that he can get away with it, right? Like those are the things that you liked about him. Mario Williams could be that guy. We've never really been that high on Mario here, but I think he's a good filler piece, and he's a guy that could step up. We could put Branch on here as well. I know he's getting buzz and all that, but again, Caleb's the guy that's going to bring this thing to a championship or not.
Yeah, to your point about the freestyling, I've done a Caleb video. I think you're right. I think there are times where you'd like to just see a better pocket managing type of quarterback.
Yeah.
But also, if you take away the freestyling from Patrick Mahomes, he's not Patrick Mahomes, and so I think that's the give or take. I think Lincoln says, "Caleb, go do your thing. Like we'll ride with you," and I think Caleb is going to take that next step. I don't even think we've seen the best version of this kid, and I
Yeah.
still think he's the best college quarterback I have watched since I started scouting. So, and I don't actually think Drake May's close to him, but yeah, I think Mario Williams is probably a good college wide receiver. I'm not sure what his NFL
No.
prospects are, but I know he's got steady hands and probably will be Caleb Williams' favorite target to start.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be that. Like, I think from a college perspective, you put Mario on here. Defensively, I think is where they got to improve, right? Alex Grinch's squad, Alex Grinch came back. What is that going to look like? They did actually. This is the scary part about this team. They led the country in turnover margin, so they were plus 22 on the back of. They had 29 takeaways last year, so they stepped up. There was games where hey, they got turnovers, but it was just getting stops, right? They were 8th worst in FBS and yards allowed per play. They ranked 94th nationally in scoring defense at 29 points per game. They were just not good there. They had a big Achilles heel that they just couldn't finish there, but they did add dudes. They just went after the guys in the portal. They kind of add guys here. We're going to be talking about that in the front seven, but they just weren't good enough last year. It was really cut and dry in that Utah game. Utah dominated them up front.
Yeah, and that was the problem, and then so they went out and they got a ton of dudes. Bear Alexander is kind of the highlight. This is a player that was on the field for Georgia in the national championship game, and he's
Yeah.
out on to USC. I think that that's a big get. You have to get the best version of Bear Alexander, but I think the best version of Bear Alexander is a massively impactful player. Returning Kalen Bullock was fantastic in coverage last year. I think he and Bryson Shaw. I'm not a big Bryson Shaw fan. I just don't. I don't know. I watched him be really bad at Ohio State. I'd like to see him take a step forward, but I think that safety duo returning, you're feeling pretty good about that. And then
Yeah.
it's just about I talked about the offensive line gelling. This group needs to gel too, and they need to do it quickly. There are too many good offenses in the Pac-12 for them to have like a marinating period. So they need to figure it out. And I think this is a group of guys that has a really high potential, but there's also some massive bust potential with this group.
Yeah, that's the scary part, right? Like, and that's where you want to maximize. Where like Bryce Young, I don't think they maximized his offensive side. They maximized Caleb's. They have that offensive side for Caleb to kind of step up his junior year. The defense, though, that's I think the key there. Now, notable losses. There's really not very many. I mean, I put guys on here, but like I don't see like a ton of notable losses just because of how bad that defense was last year. In terms of that, do you think of anybody on here that you can be like, yeah, that was a loss for that defense?
Tuli Pelotu was a good edge player that
Yeah.
kind of held things together for them, and that's why I get a little nervous, like saying, you can fill in for him. I think they went out and got some dudes that could potentially do that, but he was solid against the run. He was able to generate some pressure. I think that's the big one for me. But outside of that, Mekhi Blackman was good last year. I think you're able to kind of replace him. So this is a group of notable losses that, once again, kind of like addition by subtraction with some of these guys, where the guys they brought in are hopefully a little bit better than these ones.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, recruiting wise, dude, like you saw the offensive side, this is a Riley trait. And then the defensive side, recruiting, he didn't bring in too many guys. Braylon Shelby's the big guy, top 10 edge rusher, 6'5, 235. He's one of 3 recruits from Texas in this class. Tackett Curtis is a safety, big kid, 6'2, 224. Okay, fine. Malachi Crawford could step up there. Outside of those guys, you're not seeing a big impact players right away. Like I think they do like some of these other guys out there, DJ PV as well. Like they like these guys, but Shelby's probably the biggest piece in this group. But these guys are going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a light class, which is
Yeah.
interesting, just knowing where this program is headed. Going to the Big Ten, I don't know that they're going to be able to continue recruiting like this and expect to continue winning. It's a different brand of football in the Midwest over here. So I do find it interesting, but I think if they attack the transfer portal as hard as they just did every year, I think they can, put some makeshift defenses together. Going this late on recruiting is an interesting strategy, though.
Yeah, I think I really feel like the approach Riley has taken is we're just going to go get defense in the portal. We'll build our offense through the recruiting trail. So that's an interesting thing because we haven't seen that as much. Like we've seen pretty consistent, like kind of balance in terms of how coaches build their roster. This is different for Riley, but that's Riley. I mean, this is kind of what they do, and I think they go with that bend don't break kind of attitude. But if Grinch doesn't step up and he doesn't develop these guys, he's going to be gone. There's no way they're keeping him. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the transfers, and these are the big guns. Like Anthony Lucas was a former 4-star / 5-star kid, number 1 player in Arizona. He went to Texas A&M. We know what that class turned out to be. Did not go well. He transferred back. Anthony Lucas, to me, is the biggest wild card. Anthony Lucas could be one of the best players on this defense, or if he doesn't pan out, they're in a little bit of trouble on their edge. Christian Roland Wallace is another kid that they really like, cornerback from Arizona. He came in as one of the higher-rated cornerbacks of this class of the transfer portal, so I know they like that. Mason Cobb, Jack Sullivan. Bear is the bear. Bear's the dude. I mean, he was coming in at Georgia being the guy, like in terms of like maybe this year he's going to step up, be in that Jalen Carter. Hey, he's going to get that rotational. I know there was some kind of off the field, maybe some attitude things with Bear, what they're going to have to deal with. But overall, if these guys hit at their ceiling, we're talking about USC being a top 4 team.
Oh, for sure. I think, you mentioned him earlier. Mason Cobb is one of those guys that I think
Yeah.
could anchor this defense. I think, bringing in a guy to kind of lead. You talked about how he was, one of the better transfer linebackers in the country. I think they need a guy like that. They need a guy that's able to, kind of direct traffic, call the shots, things like that. He seems like the perfect fit to do that. Anthony Lucas is the guy I had in mind when I was talking about Thule, replacing Thule on that defensive line. But that's the thing. I talked about the bust potential. We're not exactly sure what we're going to get from him, so we just need to see a little bit early in the year, and hopefully this group steps up and can gel and be one of the better defenses in the Pac-12, because I think the bar is pretty low on that, but I think that'd be a good step forward.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about impact players. Bear's going to be on there. I think Kalen Bullock is going to be there. I think that him returning and kind of being that kid. Eric Gentry is also an end that we haven't really mentioned. He's a returner, linebacker. They like him. They've talked about him in terms of being that guy that maybe coming back, and they called him a unicorn just because of his length for the position, like in terms of what he can do on the field. And maybe Eric kind of steps up for them and can kind of give them that guy out there, 6'6", 205 at linebacker. But he doesn't necessarily play that big, but when you look at him, he can really fly around the field. So he's kind of like a hybrid out there. So you really like that. Keon Bars is another one. So when you're thinking of like what they can be on that defensive line, and like I was talking about, when you look at their front seven, and we were talking about this pre-show, 5 of them are transfers. They got to gel. Those guys got to gel on that defensive line. Hopefully their back end is better. Kalen Bullock being there. Christian Roland Wallace is the key, I think, in that cornerback room. But that's kind of how I look at this impact group.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Gentry is one of those that was a product of bad players around him. I think when you improve the players around him, I think he could be an impact player. He didn't have, the best performances last year, but I think, like you said, coming back, being a returner, second year in this defense, I think you're hoping for a better level of production. Bullock, to me, is the guy that can drive home this defense being one of the better ones, because if he holds down the top third, he's so good in coverage. He does need to work on his run defense and run fits like that, but when you talk about him in coverage, there's not many better safeties in the country, so I'm intrigued to see what this group does.
Yeah. All right, let's get into their schedule. So they're at 9.5 wins. That's what their totals are right now. The front half is it's a piece of cake. So you're looking at San Jose State, Nevada, Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona. I really don't find any of those games to be losable. In my mind, there's none of that schedule that can be losable. Then they have one of the tougher ending stretches in college football. And when you're looking at that, they do not have a bye. So they're playing these games 6 weeks in a row. Notre Dame, Utah, California, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA. That is an absolute brutal stretch there. What do we think about the schedule? Do you think that they can go undefeated there? I mean, Cal is Cal, but like when you're looking at Utah, Washington, Oregon, UCLA, like those are dudes.
We ride with Caleb, right? I mean, I think that if Caleb takes that next step, which he's a Heisman winner, a next step is going to be pretty insane to see.
Yeah.
But if he does, if he's able to kind of just operate this offense without doing the freestyling stuff, but then also incorporate that, I don't see how any of these defenses can stop them. I mean, they were already one of the best offenses last year. When you talk about an improved group, improved depth, a better running back room, I mean, even if this defense doesn't gel, I think USC could put up 40 to 50 points a week, even against some of those tougher teams. So I think getting Utah at home is a key point here, and that's going to be a big game for them. I'm not really worried about Notre Dame. Washington, Oregon, UCLA to end the year is tough, but I think Caleb's going to be too good. I don't think that they'll have an answer for him.
It's the Utah hump. Like, I think USC's motto this year is jobs not finished. And Jobs definitely not finished against Utah. You got to go beat Utah. And depending on what Rising's injury is going to be, it doesn't seem like he's going to start the year. He might be going. They might be just rolling into that game like Utah status of like, hey, we're going to go out here. Utah doesn't play very well on the road, though. That's what Christian's talking about there. They do struggle there. I think at Oregon's a big game in November. Like, hey, can he go win that game there? I don't see UCLA. I know it's a rivalry, and it kind of really depends on Dante Moore there, but I think they're a year away. But I'm taking it over on 9.5. You feel comfortable taking it over on 9.5?
I do.
Okay.
We ride with Caleb.
Hey, that's how we're gonna finish this bad boy. We're gonna ride with Caleb here. Shout out to Caleb and Riley for what they built there. They've done a great job. But this is the year. I mean, if they want, this is probably Lincoln Riley's. I don't want to say this like his only shot at a national title, but this going in the Big Ten with the schedule that's going to be, like, if he wants to kind of put himself in position to win a national title, it's got to be this year.
Yeah. I mean, this is the best opportunity that he's had to win one too.
Yeah.
I think, just the collection of offensive talent. That's what he does best. And like I said, if they are able to put up 40 to 50 a game, even the Georgias of the world will struggle against this offense. So I think when you consider that, you have to look at USC as legitimate title contenders. And we ride with Caleb. I think they have a really good shot.
We ride with Caleb, baby. All right, we'll see you guys later. Job's not finished, USC fans. Let us know what you think. Can you guys win the, I like to see USC back. I enjoy when USC is good and a top 4. I loved it last year. I was really rooting for him. Just, it's partly because I hate Ohio State. But appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll see you guys next time.